This meeting is being recorded.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Turf Talk Down Under. I'm Angela, and our special guest host today is Edie Wyatt. Hi, Edie.
Oh, hi, Angela. How are you going?
Hi.
You're a bit scratchy there. Maybe your internet's going a bit funny.
Oh, yeah, my internet's always going funny. My technical difficulties are entertaining to our viewers, I tell myself. Yeah, how you going?
Yeah, I'm well, thanks. Yeah, got my sparkle on today. I'm Christmas gender today, so yeah.
Merry Turfmas.
Yeah, I don't know if my pronouns will be ho-ho.
Queensland's still in the news at the moment. The self-ID legislation that's being sneakily pushed through over Christmas, and the submissions are being called for the period where most people are on holidays and have no idea what's going on. You have put out an article talking about it. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, it's just on my Substack at the moment. I'll do another one that's a bit shorter and easier to understand that Spectator said that they'll publish. It's got all the information at the bottom about where the bill and the submissions. I'm not sure they're going to do any good. Like most of us, we're in a state that is completely unresponsive to popular opinion. Certainly the opinions of women have not been considered at all in Queensland. And the legislation itself, if you read it, it's absolute nonsense. It's based on completely ideological assumptions about what women are and how we live. So another thing is you'd know that there's some people in our community who are hearing impaired, and they've been showing keen to get them to get some submissions as well. So in my article, I'll highlight some of those issues, including the disability issues. A lot of women, I know even Belle Staffy's got, she's quite deaf, and they say that there are issues because they're frightened about, most women are frightened about men coming from behind. But when you've got a state that's and particularly these issues are all sort of extra for disabled women and deaf women. So I want to try and find as many voices as we can to highlight that this legislation, the changing of definitions of men and women, and the inability for women to have boundaries around their sex is hugely significant.
Well, as most people know, my father-in-law transitioned in 2014, and the first thing he did after transitioning as a 65-year-old man was go back to university and study nursing. So, I seriously think a lot of these men put themselves into carer roles or roles like social work, into youth work particularly. So there's, that they're exposed to women and kids and vulnerable people.
Yeah.
And they're using, the anonymity, supposed anonymity of, their new gender identity to do God knows what. I mean, why would a man who previously worked for an oil company suddenly decide that he's a nurse? It's just as absurd as him deciding to be a woman, as far as I'm concerned. But, it really made me uncomfortable, And I think that terrifying. I've noticed so many of the young men, particularly the young AGPs, are getting into youth work and social work. And because the public service is so captured, they're actually actively encouraging it.
Yeah, that's right. And dangerous. I mean, as you probably know, I've got a lot of disability in my family. I've got a genetic disease which causes complete paralysis over a long period of time. So I've spent a lot of time in nursing homes, in psych wards. It also causes mental illness. Female carers are hugely important when you're completely dependent on carers to toilet you. And all the women in my family also had been subject to sexual abuse. So having a man come in, when you're disabled, and particularly if you've got cognitive problems, you can still, you don't have the cognitive ability to take on gender identity. You see a man and you feel, or your body feels the reaction of that. And that's a human rights violation that we shouldn't let our governments get away with.
Well, there's been autistic kids particularly that have gotten in trouble before, and one was cautioned by the police in the UK because they misgendered someone, because they saw a man and said it was, oh no, it was a trans man, and they said, oh, that's she, and it was a policewoman, and she actually made an official complaint to their equivalent of the Human Rights Tribunal against a teenage autistic boy because he misgendered her.
Yeah, all this stuff's going to disproportionately catch people with mental issues, with mental illnesses as well. I know when my sister was towards the end of her life and her mental capacities were less, she would say the most outlandish things. And, you know, in a society, in a community, we give a bit of a pass for the mentally ill when they say, certainly not if they're being sexually inappropriate, but we do give a bit of room. And this legislation doesn't allow any room. It's authoritarian in nature because it.
My brother's significantly disabled, and he's in a mixed sex, sort of like a nursing home, like an SRS home. Yes. And already the women in that service are disproportionately targeted for, grooming, for, inappropriate sexual behaviour. Like, women are already at a distinct disadvantage from men who identify as men. They're not protected enough by the system. There's not enough staff in there, with particularly people that have intellectual disabilities. Like, you've got alcoholics and ex-cons living in a shared facility with women with mild intellectual disabilities, and it's a recipe for disaster already. You add gender and both, the lack of ability to have single-sex privacy spaces, but also the fact that by changing their birth certificate, these men basically erase their past. There's all these new levels where these women are put at risk. And this is common sense. This is not rocket science. And the statistics on violence and sexual inappropriateness and all sorts of things in nursing homes clearly say that women, or elderly and disabled women, are far more at risk from male carers, regardless of how they identify, than men are from female carers or from other male carers. Like, it's common sense. And all of this is ignored.
It bypasses some checking points as well when you apply for a job. If your name has changed, with your maiden name, you have to still put your maiden name, and they check it. So some of this is being bypassed with some of this legislation where they're not required, because it's dead naming, right? It's actual violence to put their real name, their birth name there, and when their birth name is erased, it causes. And some of the legislation says that it addresses those issues. When I looked it up, they said safeguarding issues. They didn't look at single-sex safeguarding issue. They look at that issue, and it just gets erased over time. And so these guys just hide in these identities. They don't give a shit if they put a dress on.
That's scary, really.
And when I say these guys, I just mean men. I'm not talking about any special identities. There's no magic soul. I don't have that religion.
Yeah. And I quite often say, people say, oh, you're always saying horrible things about trans people. I say, no, I'm saying horrible things about men, because no one's given me a definitive way of telling who's trans and who's pretending to be. So until then, they're all just men.
Or even what trans is, nobody knows.
No. It's so broad. Yeah, so we really haven't had that much news this week, because coming into Christmas, everything's sort of slowing down, and that's been advantageous for the self-ID bill in Queensland. Here in Victoria, we're still sort of reeling and dealing with the consequences of the election, and some bad things have come out of that. One is that Dan Andrews has a vast majority government, and that he is even more emboldened. So all his radical gender stuff is going to get pushed through, including hate speech legislation that's going to include misgendering and other things, because gender identity will be protected. They won't provide a definition of trans or whatever. So, it will be used as an excuse by people that don't even have imaginary genders, but I'm sure it will also be weaponised by people looking for a reason to be angry. And, because I've got people following my Twitter just to look for things to report, and yours probably. definitely yours because you keep getting banned. But,
Yeah.
you know, imagine those people knowing that there is legislation where you can literally take somebody to court and claim damages for misgendering you.
Yes. Well, it's also a punishment for dissidents. I mean, I think that hate speech legislation is a way to employ the police, who are supposed to be servants of the people and are supposed to be separate under the principle of separation of powers, to employ them as a political arm. So, you know, it doesn't matter. It's not about gender. It's just about, well, there's a lie which men can turn into women. And if you won't say that lie, if you say that lie, you can be part of this power structure. If you won't say that lie, if you're a dissident, you can't be part of that power structure. And if you still refuse, then you can be arrested and certainly you lose your job and, you know, suffer the consequences that dissidents always suffer in a totalitarian regime. This is a deeply authoritarian movement.
It's chilling. As a granddaughter of a woman who escaped the Nazis, it's chilling. It's absolutely chilling. You know, we grew up in an era where the Cold War and, you know, although people still talked about the Second World War because our grandparents lived through it, you know, so anyone with any awareness of, you know, world history in the last century, this is just, you know, you never would imagine that it would happen again in your lifetime.
No. Well, it was my parents. My parents were born in the 20s and 30s, so they lived through the war. And it's that oral sort of history, isn't it? And it's embedded in our politics. This is, you know, yes, or we're all lefties and working class, and we're all going to, you know, have the workers' revolution. But we need to be careful of authoritarianism. That was always ingrained. And, you know, you'd say, well, why can't you do this? Well, it could, if a bad law comes in, it can be used in the wrong way. So we've lost that consciousness that the government might be leaning towards authoritarianism, when governments always do lean to authoritarianism if they divert accountability to the people, which is what we're finding in Victoria. We found it in Queensland, and now in the federal government with the Labor Party now have the Greens and Pocock on their side, so they can pass pretty much anything they want. They don't have. And it's not about them saying, oh, well, we've got a mandate. It's about the fact that the Liberal Party representatives, they are still representing a constituent. And with a minority control, they ignore that whole constituent. So that's the problem. It's a democratic process is broken.
For sure. My local candidate is against all the gender stuff, and she's a Liberal, and she's just doesn't even have a voice at all.
No, it's prophesying into the wind. And there was some good news out of the election, wasn't there?
Oh, yes, there was. Andy Medic, the leader of the Animal Justice Party, got the boot. He didn't get voted back in. Now, though many of us will remember, I actually voted for them at the last state election because I was so disappointed in Labor for adopting self-ID. So I thought, I don't know, instead of a donkey vote, I'll vote for, better treatment of animals, companion animals, whatever. So I thought, it's better than a donkey vote, and because they're left-leaning and the other policies that they promoted were, they were probably going to give preferences to Labor anyway, so it wasn't really that much of a protest. Anyway, a month after the state election, Medic announces that both of his children are transgender, and the Animal Justice Party will be now the Animal Justice and Transgenderism Party. And that will worse than the Greens. His whole personal profile as the leader was blah, blah, blah. We know that 2 Queensland representatives actually left the party at the federal election because they got in trouble for questioning women's rights.
Yeah, so pressured out. Yeah,
and we've had them on this show. We're going to have them back again. But so the community's actually sent a clear message to Andy Medic that he was voted in on the grounds of being an animal rights activist and not a social justice warrior. So that's a good thing. The other social justice warrior, and unfortunately in her case, her damage has been done, who got the boot is Fiona Patten, the leader of the Reason Party, which used to be known as the Sex Party, which was also the platform of the Scarlet Alliance, which is meant supposedly a prostitution advocacy group, but it is actually the pimp lobby
Pimping, yeah.
And they were the ones that did a deal with Daniel Andrews, so he would deregulate the industry and make prostitution legal in Victoria, which he did last year, and that was mainly because of Fiona Patton's advocacy. Now, she also got the boot, but Daniel Andrews got the benefit of her votes for things like all the gender stuff and all the stuff that is already handballed through.
Yes.
So glad to see the back of Andy Medic. Hopefully that party will get back to caring for animals. Really glad to see the back of Fiona Patton, even though, you know, her party too had a few quite left-leaning positive things, but they all became just about social justice. So, you know,
well, it's about men's rights, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like both that prostitution issue, people criticize us about that, but actually it sounds like it's talking about women's rights. It's the same thing. It's a facade. But it's actually about men's rights of access to women's bodies for payment. You know, they're happy to pay for it, but they demand access to female bodies, particularly young female bodies, and they want to be able to access them with money, which is a highly contentious issue, and another one that we're not allowed to debate. So men have rights to be women, to perform our gender, and to access our bodies. And the other one also, of course, is surrogacy, where men demand access to reproductive. So I just want to highlight that our position is not anti-left-wing, but these are just fake left-wing ideas.
And the thing is that the unions advocated strongly for decriminalisation of sex work, sorry, I don't like using that word of sex work, but of prostitution. And I spoke to a girlfriend who works in prostitution the other day, and she told me the going rate that these prostituted women get for a full service, and a carpenter charges more per hour than they do. So, you know, for all this supposed benefit to prostituted women, the benefit has been to the pimps, and it has been to the men who buy women, who will no longer be criminalised and have their purchase of women exposed to their family, to their fellow politicians, to their fellow police, etc. That is who this benefits, because it's certainly not benefiting the prostituted women, because they're earning less money than ever. So
well, it puts them in the market. What happens? The market is inherently exploitative.
Yeah.
You know, the government is inherently tyrannous if it's allowed to go unchecked, and the market is inherently exploitative if it's allowed to go unchecked. These were once left-wing stables understanding. That's how we understood government and markets.
Yeah, and the old school feminists, well, we've always been against prostitution, you know, like, and not against prostituted women, obviously. We're against the demand for women's bodies, against commodifying women's bodies. We've always been anti-prostitution, and we've never, ever thought that men were women. So this whole thing about, radical feminists, this great new, you know, radical idea. Well, we've always had this position. It's the definition of feminism that's changed away from what it was always about, which is what, you know, we try and spread the word.
It's a coincidence that it's turned into men's rights, isn't it?
It's disgusting, but anyway, our guest has arrived. I'm just going to let her into the waiting room. Hopefully this will work. Is she coming in? I said admit. Hello. Nope, there she is. Are you with us, Louise? She's just popping her audio on.
Oh.
She's coming. Our guest, I'll start introducing her now. Our guest, Louise, is well known to us Melbourne TERFs. Louise is one of those grassroots feminists who, if you say, right, we're meeting at the park at whatever, we're doing this activity, we're doing that activity, we need to get someone to go here, Louise is the first person that puts up her hand. There's herself and a couple of her friends, and you can guarantee if you're going to do a direct action, they will be there with bells on, and they'll be up the front, and they will take on any task that you present them with if it involves advocating for women's rights. So, you know, these women are legends. Louise particularly, because lately she's been doing some 1 and 2 women protests all on their own. And, you know, here in Victoria, it's a really hostile environment to be a TERF. And Louise and her friend have had the courage to go by themselves, or, you know, just with 1 or 2 of them, and to protest against things. And I think they're incredibly brave. And that's why I invited Louise on the show. There she is. Hi, Louise. I'm just been introducing you and what a legend you are.
Oh,
is your mic on?
Pardon me?
Your mic's on. That's all right. Yeah, I was just singing your praises as one of the women who, if we announce an event, you're there. If anyone in Melbourne announces it, you're there.
Absolutely.
We need more women like you. We, you know, particularly because Kelly J's coming out in March, and the trans activists are already organising. And I think women like you are a good example for other women of not to be afraid. So,
I'm just going to say, I'm absolutely hoping that that's what will happen. Yeah, so excited for her visit, not excited for the rubbish surrounding it. Yeah, so absolutely.
Well, at least it's predictable. We know what's going to happen, don't we?
We do.
Do you think Dan Andrews will call her out? Do you think Dan Andrews will suggest that she's like a Nazi and that he doesn't condone her hate speech or something like that? Do you think it'll be that big?
Wow, I don't know. I'd be amazed if I would be amazed. Then he's got to sort of really, that puts him front and centre, doesn't it? When he's acknowledging and, yeah, I don't know. I want to say I almost hope that he does, because it highlights him then as the sort of leader that he is, and, you know, and how much he couldn't give a rat's about the safety of women, just our basic rights. He couldn't care less, you know, no concern at all.
And I think it also, if something like that happens, people get curious and they say, particularly when someone who's a compulsive liar like Dan Andrews, they'll say, oh, he's against someone, I'll have a look. I mean, some people won't. Some people just accept the narrative. But as we move on and as his kind of nature is exposed even more, you know, people might say, let's have a little listen to what she's saying. What is hate speech now?
Yeah. It'll be that part will be so good. You know, God, this is taking such a long time, isn't it?
It's very powerful.
Yeah. So, Louise, what brought you to this fight?
Gosh, I've been a feminist pretty much since late teenagehood, I guess, when I was very aware of the women's liberation movement.
Was that 1995?
And it was the start, I guess, of, you know, women not just being happy leaving school to be a teacher or a nurse, and they were the options, or the public service, and for me, I mean, I wanted to be a mum, and I did that, and the way I brought my children up seemed to be quite different to a lot of people. So I was just really aware that there was stereotypical stuff was around, and I figured my kids could play whatever they wanted to play with, and it didn't mean anything. And that was fabulous, because, you know, we're also reading child development books, and so there was all that stuff of kids. The squashing of stereotypes was happening, and you know, women were going to uni and they were doing stuff and they were more vocal, more visible, and yeah, more in the public eye. I think they started to expect more of themselves because the environment was, you know, maybe just a little bit more accessible and maybe a little bit more welcoming for women to step out and be someone. And it was wonderful. And what's happening now is, to me, it just seems as though, well, we all know that there's going to be kids that are weird. There'll always be kids that are weird. Always, you know, protesting about something that's really important. May not seem important to others, but that's what adolescents, that's what they do. It's not, you know, it's nothing new. I can't even think of all the different, you know, groups of people that other people have thought, you know, cripes, they're odd. But, you know, they grow up okay and do their thing and life goes on. And the next lot come along. And it feels as though this lot are fueled by something really bizarre. To have, to have our basic requirement of sex-based rights for women. Gosh, I mean, our foremothers have fought for this, fought for women to have spaces away from men. How unbelievably simple is that? It's so simple, and we're having to, well, hopefully we're saying no, you know, no, you can't. And it just sounds like the really, really naughty children, the ones that really don't want to be told no, are very upset about that. The sad part is that that grown-ups are also agreeing with the children and the widows, like
the state, really, isn't it?
Pardon?
It's the state that's agreeing to it. And so we've become anti-state protesters, anti-government protesters. Mm-hmm. So as we grow up and we see these regimes that are taken over by authoritarianism, we talk about anti-state protesters and state people who are on behalf of the state. And these kids are the first generation who are on the side of the state. You know, there's uni students. When you remember being a uni student, we were all against the state and the state was going to take us over. These kids are on the side of the state and we're the middle-aged women against the state. It's weird.
It really is. And I also wonder whether the kids know that they're on the side of the state. If that was sort of really pointed out, how, like, that's just not what they do. That's not what they're supposed to do. They hate it. That's not their job.
No. I pointed out to them, I go, I'm the anarchist. You're just, you know, like you're just a little puppy lapdog of the state. And they're like, oh, you know. Turfs are the new punks. I tell everyone that. Turfs are the new punks. Come and join us. Yeah. See, I've got teenage daughters, and one's older than a teenager. But you know, my daughter was telling me the other day how there was a picture of her online, and all everybody could talk about was how her jaw was misaligned. Now, I think this next generations of kids are angry. They've got a lot of rage, and it's misplaced. And I think it's because they've been brought up with these superficial ideals. And unlike us women who, you know, grew up in a time where education was free and you saw an opportunity to change the life that you may have been born into, or that you felt the direction you were going in, you had a choice not to get married, you could go and get an education.
Yep.
You could do a whole bunch of stuff. These girls have been brought up for appearance more than anything else, and they've got no escape. And not only that, this society is saying, if you want to escape, you can change your body. Or if you want to escape, you can do sex work and make yourself a commodity and buy your way out, which is a false promise. And these things go hand in hand with, you know, the trans thing, the sex works thing, this gender of the left. And I say that as a leftist, but this leftist agenda of normalizing two things that are quite obscure go hand in hand with pornography. And young children are being raised on a diet of pornography, no matter how many blocks we put on their phones and what we do. It is there when you go into a shopping centre and walk past Honey Birdette.
Yep.
And these children are deeply affected. They're traumatised by that, plus all of the negativity in the news about the climate, you know, the world's going to burn before they're even elderly, you know. And they've just got this fatalism, and the response to that is, okay, I'm going to just think about me.
Yep.
And this is the backlash. This is a backlash of traumatized kids, and the state is milking it. They're absolutely milking it.
I totally agree with you. That mantra of being kind has just been so twisted, and for our kids to be told to be kind when someone feels that they have been born in the wrong body, and then, you know, let's now call, you know, our friend who used to be Emma, you know, she's now Edward, I just think, just stop it. I just keep wanting to say it's wrong. We're teaching our kids to lie. You know, they've got their own little bodies that are perfectly fabulous. And if what the problem is it's happening up here, then that's what we need to help them with. That, you know, a lot of these kids, they're going to grow up and they're going to be lesbian or gay. Big deal. But some of them won't. Some of them will have real trouble dealing with whatever it is that they're dealing with. That, of course, is never going to be solved or repaired, or by saying, if you're a little boy, that the fact that you like girl stuff, that you really should be a girl. I mean, that is absolute, it's criminal. The people that are saying that to our kids should be hauled over the coals. It is just disgusting that whatever the agenda is, and we all know there's an agenda, to tell that to our kids, and then at some point say that they can choose to then perhaps go ahead with becoming the opposite sex, which everybody knows is never, you can't do it.
No, and it also involves, a solution involves the removal of women's and girls' boundaries. So that's what becomes suspicious. It's, that kid, that little boy, and then we always see the beautiful little boy that looks just like a girl, is confused. And the solution to that is the removal of girls' boundaries to their bathrooms, in their private spaces, in their change rooms. We're seeing an attack on girls' schools, which would repurpose, and even the legislation in Queensland admits that the changing of birth certificates is, the purpose of it is the affirmation of this ideology. So our entire infrastructure has to be repurposed to affirm the identity of boys, which for me is rape culture. That's what we're teaching little girls. Even more dangerous, I think, than teaching little boys that they can magically turn into girls, which they can't. And gay people are saying very clearly, gay men are saying very clearly that they don't accept trans-identified, the honest ones, that they don't see those people as men. No. So we're lying to them, plus we're removing the boundaries of girls.
So if you're a little boy and you've grown up from the age of, say, I think the average age that a child first views pornography is younger than 11 now. So from the age of 11, you've been brought up to believe that women don't have boundaries because what you've seen in porn, you look at and you think that it's real because you're a kid.
Yep.
Then you're not going to develop any healthy boundaries yourself. And you can tell by interacting with any one of these trans rights activists on the internet that these boys have no boundaries at all. These men have no boundaries. They have no social boundaries. They have no personal boundaries. And so they assume that you and everybody else should also open our doors to them. And we're not going to do it. And they don't like us.
Absolutely not. We will say no. No, we will continue to say no. Men who, have had their diet of porn, that's in their mind. They find a girlfriend that maybe doesn't want to do that. Off to the prostitute to provide the entitlement of whatever sex behaviours they want to engage in.
Or OnlyFans. There's a whole bunch of options for them. They don't even have to leave their lounge room. I know I've lost count of the women that have told me they've discovered that their husband's having a secret affair online where he's jacking off talking to some woman in some other country. You know, so the internet's, opened up a world of opportunity for creeps.
Yeah. Oh, look, totally. And for trans widows being shamed into accepting those sorts of behaviours and to be made to feel as though, well, if you're not going to be accepting of us, then we'll suicide. But that's not manipulation. We're not manipulating you at all. We just want to be accepted for who we truly are. And I just think, bugger off. Bugger off.
Yep.
Yeah, we don't have to accept who they truly are. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to get you to tell us about what you did on election day.
Oh, yes. Election day. You know how you feel. You just think, I've just got to, I'm so sick of walking around and knowing that most people that are around you haven't got a damn clue about things. And also back when, women were burning their bras and doing all of that, which was really important. People now still, there's the ones that are aware and there are others that kind of know what's going on, but it's not really affecting their lives, or they're just not aware of how it's affecting their lives, or they think it's going to stop. They think, it's just a phase, and they're not aware of how much how it's invaded everything, that their spaces have just been destroyed and they have no voice anymore, no women's spaces, being expected to call a bloke in a frock her, well, or be made to feel terrible about it. Say to someone, in the workplace, might accidentally misgender some dickhead who's decided that, the whole world has to accept me as a woman, or else, oh God, I don't know what else. They'll cry. They can run to Dan Andrews and say, they won't accept me. They won't say I'm a woman. I want them to say I'm a woman. I feel like a woman, so they should. Please. my sign. So on election day, I already had a sign, and I kind of thought that I would find a spot. And I found a voting place, and I wandered in, and I had my sign in my bag. Wasn't quite sure how it was going to pan out. And as I walked in, you know how you walk through and all the people are handing out their pamphlets. And so for each of the people, I said, has your party worked out what a woman is yet? And a couple of them just sort of like, and one woman said to me, well, you'll have to ask the party. I just saw, and another one, just as I was going, a couple of the blokes there, they came forward to me and they said, we know what a woman is. They were a couple of older men and one younger man. And a woman who, and I can't remember her name, she said, I know what a woman is. And she said, but you've got to fight from the inside. And I just thought, yeah, okay. So I went in and I voted, and when I came out, there was a sausage sizzle. So I got my sausage. Democracy. Democracy sausage. What a joke. What a joke. My democracy sausage. So, so I went over to a bench. There were a couple of people sitting there. And I sat and I'll just pop my sign in front of me while I'm having my sausage. You know, it was near the gate and people were coming in. A couple of people, you know, just sort of glanced at my sign and didn't say anything. And after a little while, the manager of the place came out and just sat beside me. Oh no, started to talk to me. And she said that I was making, that there'd been a comment, something like that I was making someone feel unsafe. And I just laughed.
You do look very dangerous.
Edie, I am so flipping dangerous. You've got no idea. So I sat there looking dangerous. And I just laughed. I just thought, really? Like, really? I've got a sign and she feels unsafe. And it turned out that it was the one that said, I can't even remember what party she was from. She had a red T-shirt on. And because I didn't know at first who it was, I thought, you know, maybe someone inside or... So she sat down and, you know, she said, it's, you know, you're making people feel unsafe. Well, the manager and I, we discussed the sign and she was actually fabulous. She knew exactly what I was talking about and she knew. Anyway, so she went back and she wanted to know how long I was going to be there. I said, I don't know, just having my sausage. And
how long is a democracy sausage?
Damn good point. Good point. I probably didn't say that. So I, you know, continued with my sausage, and a little bit later, someone came out and took a photo of my sign. And actually, that might, maybe that happened before. Anyway, I don't know. One of the fellows, two of the fellows that were handing out pamphlets at separate times came over to chat, and just they were absolutely like they know that it's all garbage, but it'd be really nice if blokes like that would start, you know, making noises. So I sat there for a while longer. I think I might, at one point I went back to the car, and I remember I put the sign in the front of the car, and a fellow went past and did the eye roll, you know, and sort of shook his head as if to say, oh, you stupid, you know, stupid.
Wrong side of history, they say.
Pardon?
When in the protests, often they walk past and they say, wrong side of history.
Oh.
always men. It's always men.
Mm. Well, I found that like just a bloke doing it, really. My sign says defend women's sex-based rights. So anyway, I'm going to have to go and grab a glass of water. My throat is constricting.
Oh, no.
Can I do that?
Yeah, go. Yep.
One second.
It's interesting, isn't it, the way, you know, when you go out in the streets, and I'm not a big person to do that because I don't know if my emotional system can handle it, but I've done it. And, you know, it's always the men that come up to you.
Yeah.
And
although today, I'm wearing this T-shirt from IWD Brisbane, and it says radical feminism here to stay. And a couple of young gothy looking girls came up to me and said, oh, what does your T-shirt say? Because they saw the fist and obviously thought it was a real lefty T-shirt, and it is. And they read it and they sort of backed away and went, and I'm like, that is exactly what I wanted to happen. Yep. So, and you know, looking at me really strangely after that. It's like, oh, real tough. Yep.
Yeah, because they don't hear about it.
No, they don't see us in real life. And like, remember when we went to that protest and people saw us and they go, oh, real turfs, and they're staring. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I've got my.
Yeah.
I've got my.
Yeah.
Whenever I go out, I have something. I've got my lesbian, not queer T-shirt, my my TERFs walk among you T-shirt. I just think, oh look, you know, bugger it. It's I just think I don't have to obey all this rubbish. No, you can't tell me what to say, and I'm lucky I don't have a career to lose, and I'm not going to shut up. Why would I shut up? I mean, it's just bizarre. But I get it that women are too frightened to say because it's obvious that they will lose their jobs.
Yes, I found that when I was doing a video at one stage, I looked at the Salem witch trials. And you look at the Salem witch trials and you look at the women who were killed and persecuted, they're almost all older than 40. I mean, that was a long time ago. So the life expectancy wasn't that long. And there was women who were older and who just said, go fuck yourself. Oh, can I say that on Turf Talk?
Yeah, of course you can.
I'm not doing this anymore. And you see them now, the older women, they got nothing to lose. They might own their own house or have a secure pension. And they just say, I couldn't give any fucks anymore. And you can go and stick this up your ass. Yeah, so absolutely. It's interesting. The older women have a really important, hopefully we won't see them burned at the stake. But they were the women at the time who were prepared to be burnt at the stake. Yes. Who said, well, the life that I'm living, if I don't have liberty, you know, if our daughters haven't got an ability to create a single sex space, then what are we here for? What, you know?
Well, I just know when I go out, apart from the fact of just feeling so separate from the population, partly because I know that they don't know, and partly because I'm so damn angry, and also I need, you know, if you're out and you need to go to the loo, I'm hyper aware now of the fact that there might be a bloke there. I'm hyper aware of butch-looking women because I don't know now, because I feel so sorry for women who look a bit masculine, because there's going to be the question of, like, it was okay before to be masculine looking. Now it's like, God, you can tell I don't talk. I live in this little space. I'm an old woman living by myself. My God. and I don't talk to anybody. Anyway, hopefully I can croak through.
Although I think with just to put a point there with butch women, I think mostly we can tell when they start to talk. So if you do encounter a woman, a lesbian butch woman or a straight butch woman in a bathroom, it doesn't take much. Even I know that some of the butch women in our network, if people approach them in a bathroom and say, hey, you know, or get frightened, they just have to say, look, I'm a woman. And as soon as you hear their voice, you can, like, I think we can deal with masculinity in female spaces quite happily.
I think that for me, it's more so when I'm out walking, and it was more to that that because some men, well, all of the men that are doing this dressing up, I mean, to start with, they look completely ridiculous, and that. So, you know, with the jawline, some women who are more on the masculine side, so they've dressed up. What if they haven't dressed up really well? And I'm probably not even saying that properly. I don't. As far as women in the bathroom, yes, I can tell. I had some dill talking to me the other day about I've got passing entitlement.
Passing privilege, yeah.
Yeah. And I just thought, how dare you? Because I said, well, you're being fraudulent. You know, you're lying. And he was absolutely convinced that he'll continue to do what he's decided to do because he can pass.
Because women are too afraid to say something. He probably doesn't pass at all, but they're too afraid to say so.
He obviously, well, of course, wouldn't answer the fact, well, who said you passed? And, you know, well, probably him and his friends who all say that you're stunning and brave.
Yeah.
We're running out of time, ladies. This has gone so fast.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, bring us in, Ange.
No, but I like, you know, Louise, you're, you know, I've seen you in action. You know, Louise and I have both been to a few of the International Women's Day marches where we've had hundreds of people screaming and yelling at us. And, you know, it honestly, I think Kelly J talked about it the other day on her podcast. And there's this moment of when there's such hostility, there's a real peace in that, particularly for women who have experienced trauma at the hands of men.
Yep.
Because in some ways, your worst nightmare is a whole gang of men threatening to kill you or do whatever to you.
Yeah.
You stand there and you look at them and you see how pathetic they are.
Exactly.
A massive group of men and some women can stand and look at women, their mothers and their grandmothers' age, and the whole crowd can turn on them and call them abusive names and wish for their rape and their death. And you're looking at them and their livid, angry faces. And there's something truly pathetic about them.
Oh,
and
completely pathetic.
I have no fear of them anymore. Your fear just disappears like that. And there's been a couple of times where there's literally been a handful of us facing off with a few hundred people abusing us. And you just kind of float above it. It's amazing. Like, and for women who've never been to a protest, you know, I can imagine there's so much fear. Yeah. But if someone like Louise, who's a little bit older, who is not a big imposing character, if Louise can be front and centre of our protests, but also if she can go by herself into potentially hostile environments, then all of us can get up off our bums and just show up. The benefit we have here in Melbourne is the police understand, they've witnessed enough to see that we are the ones that aren't causing this, and they will protect us here in Melbourne.
So that's good.
Yeah, so when Kelly J comes to town, please don't be afraid.
Yeah.
You know,
and for new people too, I mean, there's enough of us to protect them, as in we'll be there, we'll stand with them, to help them feel comfortable. And it'll probably be a bit scary, wear a mask if you're worried about, being seen, or whatever, but come, because the atmosphere will fire you. It will be fabulous.
I think it's important in our movement too to honour our elders, older women, and the practice of doing that is important, to sort of say that we're a movement who does respect older women, and give them the due of people who are wiser than us and have lived a life and seen the oppression from a different angle. So, Louise, we want to honour you as well, as one of the older women in the movement. We need you, and you're important to us. And a lot of older women who are out there who maybe feel like their lives, they're coming to they're not necessarily seen by society as that useful. I want to encourage you to say that,
totally right.
That you're useful to us, not just useful, but we honour you, and we want to see you have a place in our movement.
Yeah, you're powerful.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, the thing too is that you can't get rid of us. Like we're absolutely here, and willing to shout, and there's no way that we're going to be told what to do.
No,
absolutely no way.
And we live longer, women.
Yes.
So, suck that up, particularly if, the effect of estrogen on male bodies. We know, I'm not going to talk because I've got a condition where I produce more testosterone. So that's not good for female bodies. But, that's one of them said to me, "Oh, you'll all be dead soon." I thought, mate, don't be too sure, because we live a long time.
Yeah, check out the nursing home. Who are they full of?
And women who never marry, or women who have never been involved with men, live longer. So there you go.
Yeah.
I lost my mentor, my very special mentor this year, and she was 90. She was 96. So
not bad.
Never married, never had children.
Yeah.
Good for her.
What a peaceful life.
You've got some amazing women up there in Queensland, Edie, like some amazing older women, older lesbians, just inspirational. Yeah. That's why we all look forward so much to going up to IWD in March, because we get to hear them and see them. Yeah.
Well, my sister loves reading your stuff, Edie.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Well, I try. I'm trying to, next year I'm going to try and get myself in a bit of a more professional footing, and I'm going to rebrand a few things and make a proper go of, putting more content out.
Because I have to say I haven't, but she did say when I told her that I was going to be seeing you today, said, "Oh, I love Edie reading."
Oh, good. I've got a few YouTube things there too, so you can watch those. I'll try and be better with those.
She's a Brisbane woman.
Oh, your sister?
Yeah, she is.
Yeah.
We were shocked when she introduced herself and said, "Oh, I'm Louise's sister," and we're going, "What?"
I know. See, look, she was feminist long before me. I mean, and she sort of got me into questioning, a whole bunch of stuff, and so she's been my mentor.
Oh, that's nice.
So, I'm very lucky.
No, we'll have to get you both on individually and chew the fat for a bit longer, and one-on-one and stuff like that, because I could sit here all day.
Let's do it.
We've all got stuff to do, haven't we, hey?
Yeah, I've got my son's graduating from primary school tonight, so big night now, family.
Oh,
I don't even know why primary school graduation's a thing, but it is.
They have to do them all the time.
I get to sit there with my ex and my kids and cheer my son, so that'll be fun.
Oh, that'll be beautiful.
Yeah. That's cool. All right. Well, we'll all say goodbye together. We won't boot you out, Louise, and then say cheerio. As we usually do. We usually boot the guest and then go.
You can boot me if you need to.
No, it's a bit of a slow news week this week, or maybe I've just missed it because I've been busy with Christmas stuff, you know. But unlike what my detractors think, I spend every waking moment on Twitter, but I seriously don't. But I do spend, you know.
What about that guy? Was it at Edinburgh, where they went to view the film?
Yes.
Yeah, the adult human female film.
Yeah.
And we've seen some footage there. And I think that's what, you know, we're going to get some breakthrough if we see more and more footage as well, which is what the good thing about getting to the streets do. It provides opportunity for conflict, not violence, but conflict, which shows up these guys. And he did stop the women watching a movie.
Oh, yeah.
And one of them boasted about it. And Greta Thunberg posted 3 hearts. Did you see that?
No.
When they were boasting about it, saying how fabulous they were cancelling these women from watching a film, Greta Thunberg put 3 hearts to say, oh, wow, well done, cancelling those women. Getting those women to stop watching a film called Adult Human Female, which is run by radical feminists.
Yeah, another autistic kid who hasn't thought it through, but anyway.
Poor kid, yeah. All right, love, we'll let you wind up.
Cool. Turf Talk will be back next week before Christmas. And there's also a little Turfmas special coming up next week. So there may be 2 episodes. So there you go.
Nice.
Yeah. So thanks everyone for watching. Don't forget to subscribe because that really helps. It helps us move into the algorithm. So if you put the word turf in, we come up instead of a whole bunch of, you know, murder and hate of women. So yeah, that'd be really good. But thank you so much, Edie, for joining us.
Thank you, Louise.
Thanks,
Edie.
and
thank you, Louise, for coming. And have a great weekend, and we'll catch up with all of you soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Ange.
Bye.
Bye.